1480 WHBC.
Here's your AccuWeather forecast. Overcast tonight, cool with the low down to 41. Heading in through Saturday, a bit of morning rain, otherwise cloudy, breezy, and cooler with the high of 45. Sunday, overcast, breezy in the afternoon with a couple of showers, the high 48. Monday, we'll have a passing shower in the morning, so you may still need your umbrella. Otherwise, partly sunny, breezy, the high of 50. Couple of showers Tuesday, chilly with the high of 43. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina for News Talk 1480 WHBC.
Live from the studios of News Talk 1480 WHBC, it's Kenny and JT.
Man, you know, they say when you have fun at work, you never really work a day in your life, and this today proves it for me because we get the Pro Football Hall of Fame residency program once again, and we're honored to have in studio with us today. I said it earlier, possibly the best defensive back of all time. Aeneas Williams is in the house. How you feeling, brother?
I'm feeling fantastic. I love the energy, JT. Let's go, baby.
I'm telling you what, when I look back at your career, to me, first of all, I can't believe that it's been, 11 years since you're in the Pro Football Hall of Fame after a stellar 14-year career in pro football. So the question is, what went by faster, playing 14 years or the last 11 since you were inducted?
Probably the last 11. Yeah, it went by like a blur, and just to see the continual classes come in. But the also interesting thing, JT, is to see the older Hall of Famers age. Mm-hmm. We're all aging.
Right.
But to see every year is no guarantee that everybody's going to come back.
Isn't that the truth, man? And you know what? It's so special for us to have you guys come through. And Brian is here. He's our producer. Yeah. We've had, no less than 20 so far in the Pro Football Residency Program. And I've been saying this all along. Each week it seems like it gets a little bit better. And Aeneas Williams joining us right now. And I've said it so many times. What a great career. But as a defensive back, to be put in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, what goes through my mind is if you're a great defensive back and you started off at cornerback, how can you get the numbers of being a Pro Football Hall of Fame? Because if I'm a smart quarterback, I'm not throwing in your direction.
Correct, yeah. Well, because I was assigned to the best receiver, so typically I'm going against Randy Moss.
Yeah.
You're not going to throw the ball to Randy. I'm going against Michael Irvin. You're not going to not throw the ball to Michael Irvin. So Buddy Ryan was the first person, Rob Ryan, his son, convinced Buddy to put me on the best receiver. Prior to being my head coach in Arizona, Buddy, that great 85 Bears, he was in Philadelphia as well as Houston.
Okay.
His cornerbacks were left and right. He did not move them around. Rob, his son, who was my defensive back coach under Buddy, convinced Buddy to put me on the best receiver.
Okay.
And being on the best receiver, you're going to get opportunities. It's just a matter of competing and catching the ball when you get an opportunity.
When you're playing defensive back in the NFL, the one thing that people normally say is, well, he's playing defensive back because he can't catch, but you're a ball hawk.
Absolutely.
What was the strength of your game? How did you come up with so many interceptions?
I can tell you all the way back to college. One of the things that I was very good and had this unique wisdom at the time was, while in college, I found somebody in the NFL that I wanted to mirror my game after. So I wanted to be a complete corner. And a complete corner to me was being able to physically tackle, but also a great cover person. So when I looked in the league, I didn't necessarily find one guy like that. So one of the guys, Ronnie Lott, which many don't know, he played cornerback first. And he was so ferocious as a cornerback. I wanted the physicality that Ronnie never made it to that level of physicality, but he was the guy I wanted. The other guy, right about 60 miles from here, Frank Minifield.
Yeah.
Because I was 5'10" and a half, same weight, and bump and run corner in college at Southern University, HBCU. So what I did while in college, JT, I literally had a shirt painted. On the back of the shirt was Mini Lot.
Nice.
And my teammates would laugh at me. They thought I was crazy.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that I was literally becoming the person that I wanted to become through my name being called Mini Lot.
But you only played college football for 1 year. How is this possible?
I played three. Played 3 years. I walked on my junior year week before the season
that's what
started.
It was.
So I walked on. I started by the fifth game of my going into my junior year, and my teammates hated me. because they had been practicing 5 weeks or 2-a-days.
Okay.
The coach gave me the worst equipment.
Really?
And yeah, I just walked on the team. And when I got there, I just loved it. And the position I was going out for, the coach was trying to replace the guy. So I ended up starting by the 5th game. The next year I made all conference, led the league in, led the conference in interceptions, made All-American. The next year I played while in graduate school. And I tied the national record with 11 interceptions, had 20 interceptions during that 3-year span, and ended up the 4th player taken in the 3rd round by the Arizona Cardinals.
See, because I go through that Wikipedia page, and it said he played 1 year
Correct,
college football, but at Southern, is the rival Grambling?
The rival is Grambling, yes. Matter of fact, we don't even say that name.
So you go up against Eddie Robinson, though.
The late Eddie Robinson.
What was that like?
The late Eddie Robinson, so...
Is he a legend while you're playing?
No doubt. More than a legend,
Okay.
right? You're talking about the Bear Bryant of HBCU, right? So the SWAC had this the second and third year that I played, my coach named me captain. During that time, every summer before the season started, all the coaches and 2 players from each team were on the bus going to every city doing press conferences. That's when I became comfortable speaking and learned that public speaking was something I wanted to do from Coach Eddie Robinson.
Really?
So we would be on those buses and have these conversations, and then he would be at these press conferences, and he'd tell a joke, he'd tell a story. He really is the one that inspired me to really develop and hone public speaking.
How did he let you get away? Why Southern?
Well, I wasn't recruited.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so how
exactly.
does he?
So
he's watching you. How's he? Man, I should have recruited that kid.
Well, I have no idea. All I know is my dad's the first college graduate on both sides of the family.
Okay.
He went to Southern. I already had a brother at Southern who was my idol, 2 years older than me, and 2 grades ahead of me. So once I didn't get recruited coming out of high school, as soon as I graduated in May, I was in summer school in June at Southern with my brother in an apartment. So all I did was grab his coattail and did everything he told me. I have a degree in accounting. I don't even like numbers. But he's a CPA. He's a numbers guy, has his own firm. But I learned how to be a great follower, which eventually made me a great leader. And that's what I learned from my brothers.
So where is home in Louisiana?
New Orleans.
In New Orleans.
Born and raised in New Orleans. I played my high school football games in the Superdome. I sold popcorn, peanuts, and Cokes in the Dome when the Saints were playing. And I played the Bayou Classic, that rivalry game, which is every Saturday after Thanksgiving in the Superdome, and then lost my only Super Bowl in the Dome.
That sucks.
Yeah.
Now, did you grow up as a Saints fan, obviously?
Oh, no doubt, yeah.
So you went through that whole Aints era.
Went through the Aints era, but the beautiful thing, selling popcorn, peanuts, and Cokes, in the 4th quarter, we were finished. We only sold during the 3 quarters. But my credentials allowed me to go down on the field. And I was able to go on the field. So when the guys came in, I would be there by the barricade, and they'd give me their chin straps and all that kind of stuff.
We did that here. When we'd have the Pro Football Hall of Fame game, as kids, we would go to then Fawcett Stadium. Hey, can we get a chin? What are you going to do with a chin strap?
Exactly. Yeah.
We kept them.
I kept it all.
It was unreal. Who's your favorite player growing up?
Larry Zonka.
It was.
Larry Zonka.
From Miami.
I played Little League. I was a running back. And I just, for some reason...
Larry Zonka?
Larry Zonka, Larry Zonka. That undefeated team.
Yeah.
And just remember him. He had the crooked nose. And was broken. He never got it straightened back out. And my Little League team were the Rams.
Yes.
And my coach, because I was fairly good then, my coach wanted to disguise me. Didn't want the other team to know. So he
you have that horseshoe on your helmet?
Exactly. He switched jersey. We were the Rams. So he switched jersey numbers with another teammate who was a running back. But I always had the orange on.
Really?
Because of the Miami Dolphins. So even though he switched the shirt, they knew who I was because I had the orange on my sweatshirt underneath my uniform. So when I finally met Larry here in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, it was something to remember.
You know, because a lot of times they ask a question, and I think John Madden said it, or somebody at one point in time said, at night, the Pro Football Hall of Fame busts come to life, and they're going to talk to each other. So rather than ask the old worn-out question, who is Aeneas Williams' bus talking to, you've already done it in person.
Yeah, and I just got asked that question here since I've been here, and they asked the question, what would you say? Who would you say something to? I didn't mention Larry. I said, well, if the lights are out and we're talking, I said, I'm probably going to be talking to Michael Irvin.
Yeah.
And I'll be telling Michael Irvin, hey, man, we had some battles, man.
Yeah.
None of us would be here.
Right.
Without the competitive excellence.
Right.
And just having those conversations and knowing each of us that are here are a product of the competition that we went against, actually, that are now in the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
A lot of times when we're in here, and we've had members of the Pittsburgh Steelers in the glory years, from the shell to, take your pick wide receivers. We've had everybody in here. And to a man, they normally say, our own team made us a better player. Lynn Swann said, my defense made me a great wide receiver. Yeah. Is that the same with Aeneas Williams? You had to go up. When you were at the Rams, it was the greatest show on turf.
Sure, yes. But started out with the first 10 years with Arizona Cardinals, right? Only one winning season. The late John Madden told my parents, as soon as I got inducted, as soon as they saw my parents here at the enshrinement, the late John Madden told my parents, says, hey, I want you to know that your son getting in the Pro Football Hall of Fame is pretty significant. And he said, here's why. He said, the majority of guys that are here were on winning teams. He said, your son were able to get in the Hall of Fame. Yes, I had the 4 years with the Rams, but my 10 years were in obscurity and not on winning teams. And so that was a huge compliment from Coach John Madden.
You get inducted into the Arizona Cardinals Ring of Honor 2008-2009 season. The thing that goes through my mind, and we talk about this quite a bit on this program as well, because we're always talking about the Baseball Hall of Fame, and we're not good enough to put anybody in this year, and this guy's going in, but he's going in as a member of the San Francisco Giants or whatever. You mentioned the fact that you played for the Cardinals for 10 years. We remember not necessarily the fact and what you just talked about, being on a losing team for the most part, even though you guys did shut down the Cowboys and won a conference or a playoff game there. When you get inducted and you played for multiple teams, and I know you want to tip the cap to the Rams, but do you win as a Cardinal?
Well, we don't have to make that decision. We go in. It's not as a particular team.
It used to be that way, though, because when they used to have the bus, they weren't in the classes the way they are now.
Okay.
It used to be there would be a picture, like a portrait, behind the bus.
Okay.
And it would be the player and like an artist rendering of, whoever that player
team.
was. And so you would kind of we would think, whatever that picture was, that would what we would remember.
Correct. No, we didn't have to do that. In the time, one of the things that I tell people all the time in terms of leadership conversation, it was to not allow the losing to be my lid. And sometimes you're in a family that may not be a lot of great things going on, and sometimes you're in a corporation or a business that may not be the best.
Yeah.
But competitive excellence was developed even in the midst of an environment of losses, which is critical.
Right.
Many times guys allow the environment to dictate their excellence or be their lid. And I tell people all the time, even if you came from a family that wasn't necessarily the best family, don't allow that to be your lid. And so going to the Cardinals, the beautiful compliment that I got from Coach Mike Martz, who recruited me, and Coach Lovey, who was the first-year defense coordinator at the time.
Lovey Smith?
Lovey Smith.
Okay.
First thing he told us when my wife and I got off the airplane, when we made our visit to St. Louis, first thing he said, normally, and they were winning at the time.
Okay.
They had just won the Super Bowl 2 years before that.
All right.
With Coach Vermeil, Dick Vermeil. And Mike Martz was the offensive coordinator. And then Mike got the job the next year, and he was the head coach that might come in when I got traded. As soon as we got off the plane, Mike told me, he says, usually teams that are winning, they do not trade for older players who came from losing teams.
Really?
Yes. And he said, but when we looked at the film, we couldn't tell what the score was because of how you played the game.
Yeah.
Just little compliments that you get. And the other thing they both told me, my wife and I, as soon as we got off the plane, you're going to do to our defense what Marshall Faulk did for our offense.
Nice.
Yeah. So just tremendous compliments, but it's a reminder because sometimes you can't control the environment you're in.
Right.
But you certainly can control how you produce regardless of the environment.
There were occur to you? I mean, you ever think about like when you're playing at St. Louis and you played for the Cardinals, that the Cardinals came from St. Louis? I mean, what was that like? And now the Rams are back in L.A.
Right.
I mean, do you have a home?
Well, I have a home, yes.
But I mean, as far as those
they're
franchises?
They're both teams that I played for, and the Cardinals gave me the opportunity the first 10 years. Yeah, we didn't win a lot of games, but Mr. Bidwell drafted me. Larry Wilson was the general manager. And so I had an amazing run, amazing time. And then now going 4 years with the Rams, same thing. So I love the game. I love not only the teams that I played for, or the Saints growing up, or the Rams or the Arizona Cardinals. I just love the game.
Yeah.
I love the growth of the game. I love the current players.
Right.
I always get the question, do you miss the game? And I always tell people I don't miss it at all because I did what I was supposed to do when I played. And
gave it your all.
And JT, a lot of guys end up leaving the game with regret because at some point during their career, they either got distracted with the money, the women. But I'm so glad through the grace of God I didn't get distracted. I was able to fulfill my potential.
It's the greatest honor of all time to be inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, but it's also an honor to be playing in the NFL. It's like 1% of the players that play, and especially you're probably at a disadvantage, even though you're drafted in the third round, 1991. HBCU wasn't that big on the pecking order back then when you were drafted. So it means you're doing something right, but you're on the radar. And the Arizona Cardinals are one of 32, man. Not everybody gets the opportunity to play. Even like right now, for instance, with the draft about a month away, if you're a young kid coming out of college and the Cleveland Browns or the Tennessee Titans are looking at you, what goes through your mind as the player?
Well, the first part, my generation of HBCU players, that was probably the last generation where throughout the league, there were pro guys. Elkhorn State, 2 guys played in the pros, both of them were receivers. Fred Barnett and Jake Reed, Grambling State, both of them played in the league. Jake, 4th rounder, Fred, 3rd rounder. Alabama State, a guy played in the league. Texas Southern, guy played in the league. Jackson State, Jimmy Smith, Fred Barnett, Barnett made it in the league. So we had the competition at that time. My concern, I think my class is the last group, I could be wrong, that had HBCU players inducted into the Hall of Fame. It was 3 of us. Michael Strahan, myself, and Claude Humphreys, and a senior. And we don't know when the next guy from HBCU is going to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. I may have missed one since mine, but I'm just saying that's when, after we left, is when it's really start changing. Because a lot of your smaller, what they call in basketball, mid-tier programs, Louisiana Tech, your SMUs, even though they had gotten the death sentence, they had gotten back in the game as it relates to football, the Baylors. So a lot of your HBCU kids that didn't go to Power Fives but would have gone to HBCU are now at your Louisiana Tech, Louisiana at Monroe. That's where they are now because of the NIL money.
Exactly, and that's what I was going to get to. NIL money and the transfer portal. Next thing you know, Shador's playing for Colorado State. Travis Hunter's the same thing. So, I mean, they're going to come find you now. So if you're a high schooler, and you mentioned the fact that you weren't recruited out of high school, it's got to be tougher now more than ever.
Yeah, it's not only tougher now. I heard Rick Pitino talking about this. They're no longer recruiting high school guys. That money is going toward we can call veterans, right?
Yeah.
So think about the high school kid who now he's thinking at one time they were the stock, they were the crop to go after.
Yeah.
But it's different now.
It's got to be different. I'm just going to go somewhere else. I'll get discovered while I'm in college, get into the transfer portal, go make a couple of bucks, and I'm moving on. I'm a free agent.
And here's the other part, HBCUs. Here's the only down part of that is if a kid goes there and they excel, they're pretty much gone.
Right.
Because the NIL money.
So are the coaches.
Yeah. Same thing.
We just saw, I mean, obviously Dion comes to mind. Eddie George comes to mind now. He's coaching at Bowling Green.
And Marshall is now on Dion's staff.
I saw that.
Yeah. So he's by the smartest guy toughest guy I've ever played with.
I want to ask you about hanging out with former players that you played with, other Pro Football Hall of Famers. Let's start with Marshall Faulk. And we've got Aeneas Williams in studio with us today, part of the Pro Football Hall of Fame residency program, class of 2014. Start with Marshall Faulk and go from there. You hang out, you talk to your former teammates, or do you talk to guys that you were inducted with?
No. So the first thing when I got inducted, and still today, is my deference for the older Hall of Famers.
Okay.
I literally serve them when I get an opportunity to. If they need something, I'm looking, and it's almost like I'm a servant. I'm not even a Hall of Famer because of my respect and honor for the guys that really paved the way for our game. Marshall and I both from New Orleans, so he and I, when I got traded there, we have this running joke. He got traded from Indianapolis, and the Rams gave up a second and a 5 for him, second and a fifth round draft pick for him, a second and a 4 for me. So I would always remind him they gave up higher draft picks for me, but he would always remind me. But he called me A-Dub. He said, "But A-Dub, they gave me more money." I said, "Okay, all right, I'll leave you alone." But they put us next to each other, and an empty locker, and Marshall and I had our lockers. And Marshall, because we're both from New Orleans, we can communicate in New Orleans dialect.
Okay.
Literally, we would do that, but we would also practice media training with each other to articulate words and communicate effectively. Because when you're from New Orleans, everyone has that New Orleans accent and that New Orleans dialogue. Like words like oil, we would call it furl.
Okay.
I'm sorry, we call it Earl. Okay. Aluminum foil, we would say aluminum furl. Because the OI was a difficult words to pronounce. So we had to practice that intentionally. So when cameras got on us, we weren't talking like we were from New Orleans because the whole country is listening and we wanted to communicate effectively. So Marshall's one of those guys, just a teammate and just love. He was a huge part of me becoming comfortable being on the Rams team. But that team, the Kurt Warners, the Isaac Bruce, soon to be in the Hall of Fame, Torrey Holt, another guy that I think will eventually get in, one of the best I play with at any level, and that's my middle linebacker, London Fletcher.
London Fletcher, John Carroll University.
John Carroll,
Cleveland.
right up the road.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
What a great story that is. What a great team that was. It was so much fun. You gave us so much joy on the field and especially now off the field. Aeneas Williams is our guest right now, class of 2014 Pro Football Hall of Fame. And coming from New Orleans, I have a great friend of mine. He calls our program almost on a monthly basis. His name is Jason Trosclair.
That sounds like a
Exactly, it is. So, you know, the Lenten season is upon us.
Right.
So about 2 weeks ago, he sends me up a king cake.
King cake, yeah.
I mean, if you ever ate...
Did you have a baby in it?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Of course.
All right. It's official. It's official.
Listen, man, if you live in New Orleans, how can you not be 300 pounds?
Every time I go back home, JT, every time, if I go to a restaurant or something, I will order about 3 entrees. Not because I'm going to eat them. I'll eat one. I just like having it around.
Unreal.
There's something about that culture. It's the most interesting, unique places. And prior to Katrina, fact is New Orleans per capita had the most native-born people.
Really?
And after Katrina, because of the disbursement, like your Derrick Henrys and all of these guys, all of them were born in New Orleans. But because of Katrina, they were raised in all these places where their family had to go.
I've been there for Final Fours. I've been there for a Super Bowl. I mean, it is an outstanding city and something that everybody should partake in. I mean, if there's a bucket list, you got to go to New Orleans.
Yeah.
But there's got to be so many things about New Orleans that made you want to maybe, and this is going back again before Katrina. I mean, it's a tough city. How do you get out?
The beautiful thing is, if you are raised in New Orleans, you can go anywhere.
Okay.
It is a challenging place. But my dad and mom, I never had to look outside my house for a role model. Yeah. So between my dad and mom, my 2 older brothers, and just my entire family, it's a tough place.
Yeah.
But what you get, the perseverance, the being able to overcome things.
Yeah.
And then in parts of the community is the violence.
Yeah.
But the kids that come out of there are resilient, and I'm talking about influences throughout the country internationally. but it's literally being able to overcome adversity. And that's something that young people need.
Right.
Because it's not going to always be rosy, and you're not going to always like your situation.
Right.
But you can make the best of your situation, and those are the things I learned in New Orleans.
And that's a great story, and that rolls us right into the Pro Football Hall of Fame residency program. I saw through social media you spoke to some kids. What have they been having you do since you've been back in town?
Well, the first meeting I came and was able to be a guest, it was in a Goodwill event at the hall.
Okay.
I didn't know I'm 57 years old. I had no idea Goodwill did more than me donating clothes to the retail store. I had no idea of the work that they do in the community and how effective and how productive they've been over the years. I didn't know. So one of the things what happens with the residency program, I've also gone to some bedrock corporations here and just left one, a family-owned business, third generation. And I went to Malone University today. Had no idea that was walking distance from the hall.
Yeah.
So coming back with this residency program, it's almost like connecting the Hall of Famers and the Hall of Fame with the pillars being on this radio station, right? You're a block from the hotel where we stay. Had no idea.
That's a small town.
Exactly. So I had no idea. But now with this, being able to meet the people, be able to know that there are bedrock people here who grew up here, love this place, and are doing amazing things with their businesses as well as with the nonprofits like Goodwill.
Yeah, it's really an amazing program. We didn't know what to expect. You know, we get the opportunity to interview current players, but for me, growing up, I'm in the shadow of the Hall of Fame. As you just said, everything's within walking distance for the most part. You know, we kid about it a lot, but you know, they were the idols to us. We never got to be able to sit down and talk to people. So this thing, for us and our listeners, makes it so much more pleasurable than just a wave in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So you come back and you get an opportunity to see how things work around town. When you come back and you see the Pro Football Hall of Fame, or when you were a player even, what went through your mind when you saw the building and then the history hits you, and then next thing you know, you're being inducted? And it goes full circle.
So when I was 10 years old, I used to play around with some cassette tape when I'd go by my aunt's house. And I recorded something on there. And on the recording, it says, I want to be one of the best to ever play in the NFL. And I couldn't figure out why people didn't love each other. And that's what I kept saying in that tape. Now, flash forward, probably when I was 6 years in the league, my aunt brought that tape to me. And I heard it. And just to know that a lot of times with young people, their desires are right there. And my parents playing sports was not our ticket out. It was, I think I said already, my dad's the first college graduate, and my mom ran our florist. So education was a huge value in our home. My oldest brother is a master plumber. My middle brother, I told you, is a CPA. And then I pastor, but I also have a degree in accounting. Okay. So that's a huge part of who we are and how I grew up. And that's part of the fabric that made me who I am.
It's an outstanding story. I mean, and the thing that hits me is the fact that when you get to that full circle moment and you get to be back into the Pro Football Hall of Fame and you listen to tapes and recordings of that nature, it's amazing that you made it happen. But then again, we realize who the individual is in Aeneas Williams. I said it when we started. I'm going to say it when we end. You may be the best defensive back that ever played the game.
Thank you. Thank you for those words.
It's outstanding. Yeah. I mean, we look back, and I'll invite people, if you don't believe me, go back and look up any of the YouTube videos. Go back and watch any of the games and the history and the story. And we could talk numbers all we want. Interceptions, touchdowns. One of the leaders in defensive touchdowns of all time.
Yes, sir.
I mean, you're a ball hawk. Did you really return a ball 104 yards for a TD?
I did.
How's this happen?
People always ask me, JT, they say, what was it like to catch 2 interceptions and running back for touchdowns in a divisional game with the Packers against Brett Favre? Or they ask me, what was it like to catch 2 interceptions against Troy Aikman and upset the Dallas Cowboys? What was it like to catch the game-winning interception against the Philadelphia Eagles in the NFC
Send
Championship
you to the Super Bowl.
Right? JT, I tell them it was just like practice. Because every interception, every fumble recovery, I got to the nearest sideline, and I ran it back full speed.
Really?
So anything that happened in the game, it was no surprise.
What was your 40 time?
4.3.
You ran a 4.3?
4.3. Started out at a 4.6, but ran a 4.3.
So you started out in the NFL at a 4.6 or started out at Southern at a 4.6?
At Southern. So the coach said allowed me to walk on. After my second year, we had upset Grambling. I made All-American, All-Conference. That coach in the New Orleans Times-Picayune newspaper, because the game is in New Orleans, he said in the article, Aeneas Williams is a great player. No, a good player. I don't think he'll ever go pro because at best he runs a 4.640.
Okay.
So that was after my second year. I ended up playing the third year in graduate school. So now I have 1 year left. I'm going to have the spring and then that final fall season.
Okay.
So a lot of times, JT, when somebody says something like that, a lot of times what guys do, they call them their haters.
Right.
And they attempt to build their whole life to prove the people wrong.
Mm-hmm.
What I learned was the difference between facts and truth. So when I heard that, I went to a teammate of mine, and his name is Brian Thomas. He's 1 year younger than me.
Mm-hmm.
He played wide receiver. You familiar with Usain Bolt?
Yes, of course.
So
Yeah.
Brian Thomas was our Usain Bolt, 6'3", 4.240.
Dang.
And I could not cover him. He would, I line up 10 yards, he'd blow by me. I mean, literally. So when I read that, the first thing I did, JT, first thing I did, when I read that, I went to Brian. And I said, hey, Brian, can you help me get faster? And this is when I learned the power of the transference of belief.
Mm-hmm.
Brian looks me in my eyes, JT. He says, Aeneas, you can run a 4.340. Now, all my life I've been taught either you have speed or you don't.
Okay.
And certainly rapid speed like that.
Mm-hmm.
I said, what do I do? This was the fall. We had just upset Grambling. We're finishing out. Then we're going to have Christmas and New Year's off, come back for the spring. He said, what do I do? He said, hey, come walk on the track team and get next to me. Okay. I said, walk on the track team? He said, yeah, you walked on the football team. I said, oh, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
So in January, I walk on the track team. I get next to him. I do everything he does. Never am able to keep up with him. I start off with him, and then he leaves me. Then after practice, I'd never worked out like this. So after practice, Brian Thomas is his name. He would be walking around like he hadn't worked out. I would be laying on the ground, and my legs would be talking to me and telling me, Aeneas, we're finished. You can keep this foolishness up. But I stayed with the JT. And by April, I had my pro day, scouts everywhere. Mm-hmm. I clocked the 4.340. After I clocked the 4.340, I was the second-rated cornerback in the country behind Todd Light out of Notre Dame.
Okay.
Going into that final season in the fall. And that's when I tied the national record for 11 interceptions. And as they say, the rest is history.
That's an outstanding story, and we really appreciate you spending some time with us today. Aeneas Williams, 14-year career in the Pro Football Hall of Famer in 2014, and the class included. And I'm just going to read through the names because I think it's fantastic. One of the greatest ever. Derek Brooks, Ray Guy, Claude Humphrey, Walter Jones, Andre Reed, Michael Strahan, Aeneas Williams. Andre Reed's been in this residency program.
Did he tell you we have the same birthday?
No, I don't think so.
January 29th.
Did you guard him?
I'm sorry?
Could you guard him?
I never played against
You never did?
Never played against him, no.
They just didn't play the bill. I mean, you guys played about the same time, didn't you?
We
gotta be close.
We overlapped, but I don't recall ever playing against Andre.
So other than Michael Irvin, who was tougher to guard?
Well, everybody presented different challenges. Mm-hmm. So I think I said earlier, Rob Ryan convinced his dad Buddy to put me on the best receiver.
So nobody was coming your way.
Yeah. So I'm matched up against Jerry, Randy Moss, Marvin Harrison. So if they went to the bathroom, I had to go with them.
Well, that's perfect, man. That's why you ended up in Canton.
Yeah.
And speaking about Canton and being here part of the residency, and we'll let you go. Well, what's up next? Where you guys got to go to now?
Well, we have some interviews tomorrow, but this is it. This is the last of our day, but it's been fantastic, and we'll have some interviews tomorrow, sign some autographs. But it's just really, I had a chance to be with the Hall of Fame staff today for lunch.
Nice.
And just share with them what fascinates me, JT, is people's willingness to want to remember history.
Yeah.
Like, I'm fascinated by that. Like, there are people who actually love tracking history. But then the Hall of Fame staff, they get to maintain the history. So it's kudos to them. And then the amazing over 2,000 volunteers during enshrinement weekend.
Unreal.
It's like it's like bowing down to that staff and those volunteers, because their service is second to none.
They love what they do. And, you know, the one thing that a lot of people forget is the Hall of Fame is a museum. A museum is history. And so when you go in there and you get the opportunity to study the history of the game, like we grew up, and Marion Motley, former Cleveland Brown legend, grew up and he was great friends with my family. But when we would see him, it'd be like, hey, there's Uncle Marion. You know, we had no idea that he broke the color barrier, right?
Right.
Plays in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, or Pro Football NFL, gets inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and to us, it was just another guy.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we didn't see through it, but now that we're at a little bit elevated age, we look back on it, and we really are able to appreciate what he went through. I had no idea about the color barrier until recently. They started to write books, and movies are coming out and everything else.
Right.
And what a great man that he was, as you are as well. And the idea is the fact that it wasn't just a game for guys that are in the Hall of Fame, because they understand what it really means to not only the fans, but everybody who ever came in contact with a Pro Football Hall of Famer. So thank you.
And thank you, JT. And as you were saying that, one of the things I didn't say yet was my rookie year, when I wrote down I want to be one of the best to ever play, I began to call Hall of Famers. So I called the Oakland Raiders to get Mike Haynes' contact information. I actually reached out to Kenny Houston, and I actually flew down to Houston to go spend time with him and Ronnie Lott. Because I want to find out how Hall of Famers thought. Because I figure if I can learn how you think, I can accomplish some things at least to the best I can, right? So those guys played a huge role. And there's another guy who's in the San Diego Chargers Ring of Fame. Hopefully one day he'll get in the Hall of Fame. His name is Gil Bird. And Gil Bird is about 6 years older than I am. And 6 years ahead of me playing for the San Diego Chargers. So after going into my fourth season, I played him in my third season, played against him. And I'd heard great things about him. He was an all-pro cornerback. He was a big corner, but ran a 4.6. But he was very good. After the game, I befriended him, got his phone number, called him up, and my wife ended up going staying, he and his wife Meryl, in their family's house. He took me to the Chargers facilities. And the first question he asked me, JT, he says, what's your philosophy as a cornerback? I say, philosophy? Who has a philosophy as a cornerback? And then I just spouted out, don't get beat. And he says, that's why guys get beat. I said, what do you mean? He said, you ever see the guy running next to the receiver, and you see it, JT. He's running next to the receiver. All he has to do is turn around. Invariably, either he gets pass interference or the receiver catches the ball over him because he never turns around. He said, that's because that guy has been taught all his life, don't get beat. Instead of, he got to beat me. Now, it sounds like a play of words, but it's not. He said, when that ball's in the air, you have just as much an opportunity. Now, I was an interceptor in college. But his mindset and what he taught me took me to a whole nother level. I used to like pass breakers, PBUs, right? I even got $1,000 for every one. So I had like 18 PBUs. And he said, man, what if you put your hands on them, you should be able to catch them. He said, what if you caught 18 of those? And I had like 7 interceptions, 6 interceptions, but I had like 18 PBUs. And so just through, and then he sat me down, JT, and taught me how to study film. And then the third thing he told me, he says, the things I'm going to teach you, the game is going to slow down. And that's when he taught me that I could read the quarterback 3, 5 step, even pass, play action, in man-to-man coverage off man, which I thought was crazy. But he literally taught me these things. And JT, the game slowed down.
We always hear about that. You know, what's amazing to me, too, is a lot of times these guys come through, and I'm talking about the other Pro Football Hall of Famers. Some of them knew, some of them didn't know. Maybe some of the older ones, their intention wasn't to be in the Hall of Fame. Pro Football Hall of Fame's only been around since 1963. It probably wasn't high on their list of achievements, but once they get there, they didn't know that, hey, I'm planning to be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. aspire to be great or greater than I am already.
Yes.
And I said I wasn't going to go through all these list of numbers, but I have to give a couple of these. 12 defensive touchdowns, 55 interceptions, 4 times All-Pro. I mean, that's incredible numbers. And again, it goes to the fact that you were driven, and you were driven even while you were playing and probably afterwards, long afterwards.
Yeah.
So what now is the message when you speak to these youth organizations and you go around, you talk about success? How do you achieve?
One, I found my passion. When I walked on, nobody needed to motivate me. My parents weren't telling me, hey, go play football. Nobody was trying to inspire me. Once I walked on, JT, it was like I was born to be there. It didn't matter if my teammates didn't like me. It didn't matter because I had the worst equipment. I was now back in a part of the purpose for my life. So one of the things I like young people, because particularly they have so much pressure with the social media and the phones, that they spend a lot of time learning about other people versus discovering themselves. The greatest discovery I've ever had was discovering myself and the things that I had a passion about. And that's what I love, encouraging them. Matter of fact, they asked me, the heart of the Hall of Famers, of high schoolers and middle schoolers, what's the last thing you would like to say? And I share with every one of them, find your passion. Find the thing that you would, the Ozzie Smith, baseball player with the Cardinals, he was doing an interview. And he was just smiling, so happy, and the interviewer stopped the interview and said, man, you seem so happy. He said, man, I do this for free. Just don't tell the Cardinals.
Right. It was outstanding.
And when you find that thing that you just said it, you said this earlier, it's no longer work.
Right.
If you love to do it.
Especially when we get, I mean, we're spoiled. I mean, let's face it. When we get to talk to a Pro Football Hall of Famer or a person that's playing the game, I mean, we're sports hacks, and that's what we do. I wish you would have had the opportunity to meet my partner, but you'll meet him the next time you come to town, because he would love the opportunity, and I'm talking about Kenny Rhoda, to speak with Aeneas Williams. And I could sit here all day long, but, I mean, I know you've got places to be. We've got to get out to another break. My producer's already given me we've been here for an hour, and it feels like 5 minutes.
It's been an hour?
And
really?
it's like your career, man. It blew by in a blink of an eye.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. You know, I'll believe you with this one. When you got inducted, and it was a big party because everybody was worried about Michael Strahan because he was doing that show with Kelly Ripa.
Yes, sir.
I'm like, I'm going to meet Kelly Ripa. But now, come to find out, I mean, when you look at it and we go back through the history of the HBCU and you look at Michael Strahan's career, he was outstanding.
Yes, sir.
And it was much more than that. And it's able to put the face to the person now rather than just wave to you in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And God love you for coming in and spending some time with us. We can't wait to do it again.
Yeah. You know, the closing thing I would say, JT, is leaving the game with no regrets. I don't know if I said this earlier, but I have no regrets. And I think I said earlier, people always ask me, do you miss the game? And a lot of guys left the game with regrets. Because at some point they got distracted either by the money, the girls. And once you leave the game, and now you're sitting and you get to reflect back. And yes, many have gone on to greater things, even though they may have not taken advantage of the opportunity.
Right.
But a lot of times the regret is there because the guys got distracted while they were playing.
But you never leave the game when you're on George Halas Drive.
Correct.
When you're in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, it's there forever. We, we can enjoy it. We can go watch the movies. We can go take a look at the bus. When you go to the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and Brian, I know we'll get out in a second. Do you have a favorite exhibit that you go to when you're there that you look at, or is it just there's me?
No. So the hall has a picture of me with my dad.
Oh, nice.
Putting a jacket on me. And my dad passed away July 2023.
Was he your presenter?
He was my presenter.
That's outstanding.
Yeah.
We love that, man.
So that's what, seeing that and knowing that's the way it's supposed to happen. The next generation passes the baton on to the next generation.
Thank you for spending some time with us today. We can't wait to do this again. And Aeneas Williams, class of 2014 Pro Football Hall of Fame, thank you again. The residency program continues. We're happy to have another Pro Football Hall of Famer in this studio 1 week from today. And as I say every week, this one's my favorite.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You're the greatest.
Thank you, JT.
Aeneas
So
Williams,
you.
everybody. Kenny and JT's show on a Friday. We're going to get a break in. We'll take up and talk a little bit more Louisville basketball right after this.
It's Kenny and JT on WHBC.
WHBC AM Canton, reliable as ever on News Talk 1480 WHBC.
From News Talk 14.